while the Central Military District has also triumphed over the Eastern Military District. However, it seems that everyone is quite satisfied with this outcome. From the perspective of Commanders Zhang Yutong and Lin Hua, both the Kyoto and Moda military districts have done their utmost. Indeed, Zhang Yutong remarked softly, I am grateful for the support and contributions of your Lonkai class in this grand military competition, and I represent the country in expressing gratitude for your efforts and hard work over the past 6 months. Especially you, Pei Su, as the leader of the Lonkai class. I have reviewed your manufacturing manual and noted that both the Super Soldier AI and the Tri-Service technology were independently accomplished by you. For this reason, I can promise you one condition, one that can be unconditionally fulfilled as long as it does not contravene national regulations or legal stipulations. Zhang Yutong's words plunged Pei Su into contemplation. He first turned to his teammates. Do you have any requests? The group exchanged glances, and in unison, they responded, no need. Pei Su was momentarily taken aback. Xiaohua then smiled. Do you remember? Pei Gu, we all believe in one thing. The greater the ability, the greater the reward. The greater the responsibility, the greater the effort. Almost half of the workload and design requirements were accomplished solely by you. Therefore, under such conditions, we should not claim what we do not deserve. After all, on a material level, we have little left to desire. Pei Su glanced at the others. Shun Kane nodded and remarked, with 75 units of the 4th generation exoskeleton armor, each of us received 6 million. Coupled with the commissions from the Kyoto Military District and the Magic City Military District, I believe our returns are already commensurate with our efforts. To demand more would be futile. Pei Gu, you should take the lead. Pei Su pondered for a moment, agreeing with a nod. He turned to Zhang Yutong, his thoughts deepening. What is it that I truly seek? He mused. Perhaps it began on that fateful morning of the college entrance examination when he sketched the design of the 8th generation machine. At that moment, he understood who he was. Why was he admitted to the Dragon Talent class? It was not solely because he was the designer of the 8th generation machine. It was also because Elder Qin had recognized early on that deep within his genes lay an innate pursuit of more formidable technology, an inherent affinity for certain endeavors. Much like those who engage in fitness, forever striving for a more perfect physique, superior performance metrics, and exceptional athletic prowess. Or like culinary enthusiasts who relentlessly seek the ultimate flavor, exquisite presentation, and tantalizing aromas. Pei Su yearned for more advanced technology. Thus, an answer swiftly emerged in his mind. I wish to gain access to our nation's most prestigious and confidential military-grade library. Zhang Yutong was taken aback. How did you come up with that? Pei Su paused thoughtfully. Does my love for reading count? Zhang Yutong fell silent, while Lin Hua chuckled. Of course it does. I can grant you that request. With that, Lin Hua and Zhang Yutong exchanged glances and nodded. Subsequently, Lin Hua leaned in closer to Pei Su and whispered, Are you familiar with the Qian Shuessen Laboratory? Pei Su was astonished. I know of it, but what does it have to do with the library? The Qian Shuessen Laboratory, named after the esteemed elder, is arguably among the top 3 laboratories in all of Kyoto, often holding the second position consistently. The first being the Dragon Institute, the pinnacle institution in research. You see, around the mid-1950s, exact dates escape me, the nation contemplated establishing a grand and secretive military library in Kyoto to house all classified military-grade materials and documents, allowing researchers in the military domain to conduct their work more effectively. However, during the site selection process, the leaders of that time faced difficulties. In the mid-1950s, it had only been 40 years since Tsinghua Yuan became Tsinghua University, making it unsuitable to select either Tsinghua or Peking University as locations. Moreover, the Dragon Institute had only recently been established and lacked stability. Thus, the plan was ultimately shelved. Lin Hua paused, then continued to whisper into Pei Su's ear. It wasn't until around 2013 or 2014, dates escape me, that the State Council revived this plan, known as the second site selection. By then, both the Dragon Institute and the 2 esteemed universities had become quite suitable for housing this military-grade library. However, considering the establishment of the Qian Shuessen Laboratory in 2011, which required fostering collaboration, and with the changing national circumstances, where the state was no longer overly concerned about infiltration, the military-grade National Library was ultimately situated in the underground area of the Qian Shuessen Laboratory. Lin Hua gazed at Pei Su. Now do you understand? Pei Su suddenly comprehended, realizing that the underground area of the Qian Shuessen Laboratory harbored a military-grade National Library. His system would undoubtedly uncover numerous formidable resources there. Chapter 87. Commander, your move was a misstep. Xiao Pei, that place is indeed classified, but your recent performances, efforts, and dedication have not gone unnoticed. If you truly enjoy reading, then I believe that accessing a military-grade library filled with top-tier classified books would be the best reward for you. Lin Hua looked at Pei Su and softly said, You might want to stay a little longer. I will contact someone to arrange a permanent access permit for the military-grade library. Pei Su nodded. All right. Afterwards, the shuttle bus heading back to the Dragon Institute set off, and the group returned. Lin Hua went to make contact, while Zhang Yutong sat beside Pei Su, lighting a cigarette. As if struck by a sudden thought, he casually inquired, "By the way, have you seen my granddaughter?" Pei Su was momentarily taken aback. What granddaughter? Zhang Yutong was equally bewildered. She drives a modified Land Rover, smokes, has a mole by her eye, sports short hair, and favors black leather jackets. Haven't you seen her? Pei Su clicked his tongue, marveling at how well the grandfather knew his granddaughter. However, he admitted, "I haven't seen her, to be honest." The call was answered by our principal. I was unaware of this matter. Zhang Yutong's frustration spiked. What the hell? Li Yunchang truly knows me too well. It dawned on him. Li Yunchang was worried that his granddaughter might abscond with Pei Su, hence preventing Pei Su from accompanying her. Zhang Yutong was incensed. What does Li Yunchang take me for? Though he did harbor a slight inclination towards such a thought. After all, if he could bring Pei Su into the military district, it would greatly benefit their Central Theater Command in the future. Nevertheless, that was merely a fleeting fancy. Why shouldn't two outstanding young individuals get to know one another? Zhang Yutong was somewhat irritated, yet he could understand Li Yunchang's actions. Forget it, he said, forcing a smile. In any case, his granddaughter worked at the Qian Shuessen laboratory, responsible for a crucial aspect of controllable nuclear fusion. It was likely that Pei Su would encounter her during his visit to the laboratory. Moreover, his granddaughter was also a student at the Dragon Institute, making her Pei Su senior. A senior and a junior, both in military engineering, a match made in heaven. A perfect pairing, igniting sparks. Cough, cough. Zhang Yutong hurriedly stifled his wandering imagination. Cough. It must be the smoke irritating him, leading to such absurd thoughts. Just as Zhang Yutong extinguished his cigarette, but Qin Lao and an elderly gentleman slowly emerged from the factory cluster. Pei Su, you're still here. Qin Lao remarked upon seeing Pei Su's lingering presence. I have matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first. Pei Su nodded, understood. His attention was primarily drawn to the mysterious elder accompanying Qin Lao. Clad in administrative attire, holding a thermos, he appeared to possess a significant status. Commander Zhang. Who is this? Pei Su inquired about the elder after Qin Lao and the mysterious figure departed. Ah, that SA leader from the State Council, named Li Zhenyuan. State Council? Pei Su was taken aback. So, a leader from the State Council is also attending this military competition? Of course, Zhang Yutong's expression turned serious. This pertains to the allocation of hundreds of billions in military funds next year. If he doesn't attend, who would? Furthermore, Zhang Yutong added with a grin. Not long ago, I reached out to an old leader from the military commission and asked him to speak to Li Zhenyuan about possibly transferring you to our military district. Now that Li Zhenyuan is leaving with Qin Lao, they are likely heading to a meeting at the State Council. In essence, the conversation veered towards discussions of future prospects. Pei Su was momentarily taken aback. What do you mean? Am I truly that sought after? Zhang Yutong, with wide eyes, replied. Do you genuinely believe you are not in demand, dear one? Consider your astonishing achievements since your debut. He raised a finger. Let us not even mention the design of the 8th generation aircraft for the college entrance examination. You were the first in the nation to attain a perfect score on your essay. He extended a second finger. You transformed a Ferrari into a vehicle boasting 5th generation defensive capabilities, inspiring the Dragon Institute, leading to your uncle developing a semi-5th generation military vehicle. He lifted a third finger. You have also created small to medium-sized 8th generation aircraft and published a theoretical work. What was it called? Something about clocks? Something about a disc and a donkey? Pei Su corrected him. It's the theory of clocks, discs, and donkeys. Ah yes, clocks, discs, and donkeys, Zhang Yutong acknowledged. He then spread his palm wide and raised another finger. Furthermore, you developed the 5th generation tank, the Black Mirror. Equipped with an array of destructive weapons and integrated with 15 collaborative tactics and a 4th generation exoskeleton armor for super soldiers. These are remarkable innovations. As he spoke, Zhang Yutong adjusted the 4th generation exoskeleton armor, which he was currently donning. Thus, dear Pei, he said earnestly, you are indeed in high demand. And not just in a typical sense. Even if this may offend Elder Qin, I will endeavor to transfer you to the military district. Pei Su chuckled at the thought. Commander Zhang, I think you might be mistaken. Zhang Yutong paused. Why? My leverage is quite substantial. Li Zhenyuan is likely discussing terms with Elder Qin. Pei Su smiled as he rose, facing Zhang Yutong. Commander, let me ask you this. Is there any possibility that the State Council would allow Elder Qin to restart his secondary nuclear deterrent program? Without hesitation, Zhang Yutong replied. That is impossible. Then, as a university student, not affiliated with any organization, what reason would the state have to transfer me to any unit? Pei Su stated firmly. To put it plainly, if I were to be transferred, I would lose my undergraduate diploma. Commander, what should I do? Zhang Yutong found himself at a loss for words. Do you still care about that? It's only one aspect. Pei Su turned back, observing the sand-laden factory cluster in Yinjiao, remnants of a former sand production site. As the shuttle bus departed, leaving deep tire tracks, he gazed at the tracks and softly remarked, I cannot bear to part with my classmates. They share my ideals and aspirations. If the State Council does not agree to allow Elder Qin to restart his secondary nuclear deterrent program, then I certainly have no chance of being transferred to the military district. I do not wish to be coerced into an action or position without reason. Pei Su smiled. Commander, it seems you are missing a key move. Zhang Yutong laughed in response. Indeed, it appears I have overlooked a crucial aspect. Standing up, Zhang Yutong shook his head. I have neglected to consider your personal will. My apologies for my lack of foresight. I have been pondering the high conditions I could offer you should you join the military district, far surpassing anything you would receive at the Dragon Talent class. I could even establish a financial fund to support your daily expenses and any legal expenditures, with no upper limit. However, I have overlooked the fact that the Dragon Talent class, established by Elder Qin, is not merely a group of researchers, but a congregation of young scientific geniuses. Your ideas will clash, and your intellect will compete. It is only in such an environment that you will truly excel. Zhang Yutong shook his head. Elder Qin is indeed astute. Pei Su, however, appeared slightly embarrassed. Commander, you just mentioned that I would have limitless funds. Is that truly the case? Zhang Yutong, puzzled, nodded. Of course. Your value merits the support of a military district or even multiple districts. You are a hidden gem, capable of groundbreaking research. Pei Su feigned a forlorn expression. Then Commander, if I say I regret this now, is it too late? Zhang Yutong burst into laughter. It is too late. You have indeed prompted a realization in me. I should not be so selfish. Either I bring all members of the Dragon Talent class to the military district, allowing you to remain together in a different environment, or I do nothing at all. Zhang Yutong grasped a vital truth. These young scientific prodigies, the future pillars of research, thrive together. Their brilliant minds will inspire and awaken one another, and only in such an environment will their progress be expedited. Regardless of whom he took, it would be meaningless. Therefore, he resolved, either he would take everyone from the Dragon Talent class or none at all. His determination solidified. He decided to consider the future of these promising individuals. Lin Hua returned, and Zhang Yutong suddenly turned his gaze to the side. Pei Su followed his line of sight and saw Lin Hua approaching swiftly, holding a blue permit. Here, Pei Su accepted the permit, noticing it bore no photograph of him, which puzzled him. Haha, Lin Hua chuckled. If I put your photo on it, it would compromise security, wouldn't it? No photo is needed. This card contains a chip embedded with your information, encrypted so that even if someone were to find it, they could not access the library or discover your details. The identification number on this card contains all your relevant information, 0004. Pei Su glanced at the number, softly stating, Am I the fourth person permitted to enter the military-grade National Library? Lin Hua replied quietly, to be precise. You are the fourth individual granted permanent access to the military-grade library. Pei Su inquired curiously, who are the first three? The first three? Lin Hua pondered, Old Zhang. And I believe your granddaughter also has permanent access? Zhang Yutong nodded. Yes, she does. Her work on the controllable nuclear fusion project is nearing a critical phase, requiring her to reference materials daily, hence her permanent access. Oh, so she is the third. Lin Hua then smiled at Pei Su. I suspect Elder Qin is among the first two, but I am not certain who the other is, as that information is also classified. Although I could look it up. I lack the time. If you wish to know, you may enter and find out. Perhaps you will encounter them. As Lin Hua prepared a vehicle for Pei Su, he boarded and nodded to both commanders, who waved back with smiles until the car pulled away. Only then did Lin Hua turn to Zhang Yutong. I'm leaving now. Heading back. Yes, I must depart soon as well. Until next year. Zhang Yutong waved goodbye. Lin Hua chuckled. I hope these years will allow us to land smoothly. It certainly will, Zhang Yutong mused, glancing at the tire tracks in the ground, softly declaring, with this child around, we have achieved a mutual benefit. Lin Hua nodded in agreement, and they both bid farewell before parting ways. As Pei Su sat in the vehicle en route to the Qianshuesan laboratory, within the confines of a meeting room at the National Academy, Li Jingyuan took a brief sip of tea and glanced at the elder before him. Old Qin, is it truly impossible to discuss this matter further? Qin Lao nodded solemnly. There is nothing more to discuss. It is as it is. Li Jingyuan sighed. It is not that I am unwilling to acquiesce. The plan for secondary nuclear deterrence has met with unequivocal opposition. Peace has been hard-won over the years. While I cannot interfere with your clandestine efforts, how can I possibly consent to making this initiative public? This plan is strictly forbidden. It takes audacity to even suggest it. Qin Lao's tone remained composed. There is no argument. If the government wishes to reassign this child away from me, they must permit me to continue the secondary nuclear deterrence initiative. Li Jingyuan felt an increasing headache as he suddenly realized, wait a moment. You know full well that this child's worth pales in comparison to the secondary nuclear deterrence plan. You are deliberately framing it this way, aren't you? You never intended to let this child be moved to the military district, did you? Qin Lao calmly affirmed, indeed. Li Jingyuan grimaced, if I recall correctly. You owe me a favor. However, that favor is insufficient. Qin Lao maintained his serene demeanor. In your eyes, this child's value may be merely a matter of personal favor. Yet to me, he holds significance far exceeding that of a million such favors. Li Jingyuan shrugged. You may say what you will. In any case, that favor is now due. The nuclear fusion project has been underway for quite some time in 3 locations. At Lonka Academy under Li Yong and academician Tang Puhua. At the Qianshuesan Laboratory with researchers Zhang Wan and Li Yu. And finally, with Mr. Wang Hongzhe at Harbin Institute of Technology. However, progress has stagnated at all three sites. I require your assistance, Old Qin. In the dimly lit conference room, the two elders locked eyes, one filled with urgency, the other remaining tranquil. Chapter 89. The Secrets of the Nation Historically. The Qianshuesan Laboratory has been defined in two distinct ways. The first being the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, established by Qian himself in 1936 in the United States. And the second being the domestic Qianshuesan Laboratory, also known as the Qianshuesan Launch Technology Laboratory. Clearly, Pei Su is headed for the latter. The Qianshuesan Laboratory is affiliated with the Aerospace Science and Technology Group and belongs to the Fifth Institute of Aerospace, China Academy of Space Technology. From its inception, the laboratory's mission has been to delve into cutting-edge aerospace technology, nothing less than the pinnacle of research. Nestled behind two ancient trees, Pei Su arrived to a rather understated welcome. With no one to greet her, everyone appeared preoccupied with their tasks. Despite the presence of a middle-aged man standing beneath a tree, gazing up at the sun-dappled shade, he too seemed hurried and anxious. Hello, Pei Su approached the man. Could you please direct me to the basement of the Qianshuesan Laboratory? The term basement was somewhat of a euphemism. The laboratory did not possess a subterranean lab, only a military-grade national library. Upon hearing her query, the middle-aged man finally diverted his gaze from the tree's shade to Pei Su. Hello, he replied softly. I am Li Mutong, the chairman of the academic committee. The way to the basement is quite simple. Once you enter, you will see a large office building. Take the elevator in that building down to the first basement level. Then head west. There is an elevator that goes down to the third basement level. That is where the basement is located. Chairman Li Mutong? Although Pei Su was unfamiliar with the chairman, she understood that the Qianshuesan Laboratory currently had two major committees. The first was the Management Committee, responsible for the daily maintenance and personnel assignments within the laboratory, while the second was the Academic Committee, tasked with the development of various cutting-edge technologies. If that were the case, it seemed that this Li Mutong was one of the foremost leaders at the Qianshuesan Laboratory. Pei Su was somewhat astonished to encounter such a high-ranking figure upon her arrival. She expressed her gratitude and was about to leave when Li Mutong suddenly called out to her. Wait a moment. Pei Su turned back to him. Is there something else? Young lady, Li Mutong pondered for a moment before asking. Since you wish to go to the basement, you must be a distinguished individual in your respective field. May I inquire whether you believe there exists a certain commonality among the technologies across various industries? He gestured towards the grand tree, just like this tree, which has many branches. Regardless of which branch we examine, our ultimate vision will return to the trunk. What I mean to say is, if a grand unifying theory exists in this world, could we use it to elucidate all current cutting-edge technologies? Pei Su was taken aback. That question is rather profound. I cannot provide an answer. Li Mutong's academic prowess was indeed impressive. He was contemplating the concept of a grand unifying theory of the universe. This theory, to date, remains an insurmountable challenge within the academic realm. It is believed that a grand unifying theory could explain everything within the universe. Yet no tangible evidence of such a theory has been uncovered thus far. Consequently, some detractors argue that no such theory capable of explaining everything exists. Humanity's yearning for it is merely a manifestation of our inherent laziness. Yet, upon hearing his words, Pei Su realized that this individual named Li Mutong possessed exceptional academic acumen. Perhaps, Li Mutong chuckled awkwardly, waving his hand. I shan't intrude any longer. Please, go ahead. Pei Su nodded and, following the route indicated by Li Mutong, took out her phone to search for his name, quickly discovering the formidable reputation he held. Li Mutong is often mentioned in conjunction with Wang Hongzhe of Harbin Institute of Technology, forming the duo known as Wang Li, placing Li Mutong on par with Wang Hongzhe in stature. Furthermore, like Wang Jun of the Shanghai Military Industry Laboratory and Li Jing of the Kyoto Laboratory, he too was named a prospective academician last year. The specifics of his contributions remain undisclosed, as these matters are classified and cannot be found online. However, given his comparison to Wang Hongzhe, Pei Su surmised that Li Mutong was undoubtedly a top-tier figure. Moreover, unlike the 60-something Wang Hongzhe, Li Mutong appeared quite youthful. Likely in his early 50s, his ascension to academia seemed all but assured. Even if one becomes a prospective academician, immediate elevation to full academician status is not guaranteed, often requiring years of waiting, and some may find themselves stuck in limbo. Yet, Li Mutong was still quite young, akin to Major General Chu. His becoming an academician was inevitable. On the first basement level, Pei Su walked through the parking lot, heading westward until she soon spotted a concealed elevator, discreetly located at a corner. Initially, she had overlooked this elevator, but it caught her attention due to the presence of two security personnel stationed at its entrance. Greetings. Here are my credentials. Pei Su approached and presented her identification. One of the security guards glanced at the document, momentarily taken aback. 0004? You possess a permanent license. Pei Su nodded, indeed. The other guard, looking astonished, turned to Pei Su. You are quite young for that. Quite. Pei Su was momentarily taken aback, but chose to dismiss the comment. Soon, both guards granted her access, opening the elevator and swiping her card. As the elevator descended, Pei Su arrived at the third basement level. As the elevator doors slid open, 2 security guards were stationed to maintain vigilance. Please present your identification. One of the guards requested. Pei Su obediently displayed her credentials. 0004. A permanent license? Remarkably youthful, remarked one of the older guards, casting a deep gaze at Pei Su before gesturing for her to enter. Pei Su inquired, how do I access the basement? The younger guard replied, you are already in the basement. Pei Su was momentarily taken aback. It dawned on her that upon arriving at the third underground level, she had in fact entered the nation's sole military-grade National Library. Navigating down the narrow corridor, she was surrounded by an abundance of books and computers dedicated to querying book information. Pei Su located a computer, her mind ensnared in contemplation. What medium was she searching for? The national policy dictated the dissemination of one generation, the preservation of another, and the research of yet another. The dissemination was self-evident, and the research was equally clear. But where had the preserved generation vanished? This was a challenging pursuit. Yet, Pei Su was acutely aware that the research materials concerning this concealed generation of technology would undoubtedly be present within this library. Chapter 90. Secondary nuclear deterrence and controllable nuclear fusion. The atmosphere here was remarkably serene, seemingly boundless, yet not gloomy. As Pei Su ventured deeper, she gradually discerned sources of light filtering from above, along with artificial windows and simulated sunlight from outside, creating the illusion of a terrestrial library. She casually picked up a book and, upon inspection, was astonished to find it entitled 2009 Qin Tianlin's Thesis. It was, in fact, a scholarly paper. No wonder it appeared so flat. She carried the book to a table by the window, seated herself, and began to read. The thesis detailed the international scenario of 2009, a time when NATO was in its ascendancy, and her country was at a critical juncture, with numerous technologies at pivotal stages requiring time. In the paper, Elder Qin described the worst-case scenarios he contemplated in a tone that bordered on despair. The worst-case scenario was not the all-channel jamming interference as outlined in another book. At least that text afforded the right to perish alongside the world. But what truly constituted the worst-case scenario? It was the incapacity of our land forces to contend with these formidable adversaries, the locking of all our weaponry rendering it inoperable, and the gradual occupation of our territory, stained with the blood of every individual. We could not perish alongside the world. Hence, I sought to devise a method to ensure mutual destruction with the world. Thus, the current international backdrop and my personal concerns regarding the secondary nuclear deterrence plan were laid bare. The essence of the secondary nuclear deterrence plan was to create a superhydrogen bomb to be detonated on the moon. The moon would, akin to imagery from the wandering Earth, enter a state of nuclear fusion. However, the ramifications of the superhydrogen bomb extended beyond mere lunar fusion. It would redefine the asteroid belt surrounding the moon and bring about the annihilation of the blue planet, disrupting the gravitational equilibrium of the galaxy. In other words, should the secondary nuclear deterrence plan come to fruition, its activation would not obliterate a single nation, nor a prominent political figure, nor merely the blue planet. The disruption of gravitational balance would precipitate a profound transformation throughout the entire solar system. This process might be protracted, yet it was foreseeable that no life would persist on the blue planet. This encapsulates the secondary nuclear deterrence plan, the very scheme repeatedly rejected by the State Council. The paper was succinct, but every word struck a resonant chord. Upon finishing, even Pei Su could not suppress a wave of cold sweat. In 2009, he had been carefree, utterly oblivious to the gravity of the international situation at that time. From his previous conversation with Zhao Linghua, he had learned that even without Elder Qin's thesis, perhaps the worst-case scenario could have been averted. However, with the publication of Elder Qin's paper, such a dire outcome was rendered inevitable. Other nations genuinely feared that Huagua would resort to such measures, dragging the entire world down with it, an act that could incite condemnation of an entire civilization. Pei Su found himself lost in thought. What had Elder Qin been contemplating at that time? Had he truly intended to manufacture a superhydrogen bomb and detonate it on the moon? In other words, was he attempting to wield the thesis as a deterrent against malign forces? Or did he genuinely intend to pursue this plan? The circumstances of that time remained elusive to Pei Su. Perhaps no one could comprehend Elder Qin's predicament then. Resolving to cease his restless musings, Pei Su was nonetheless baffled. The secondary nuclear deterrence plan should theoretically qualify as a type of medium. Why had he not triggered this medium? Was it due to the advanced nature of the technology? Upon reflection, this notion seemed plausible. The superhydrogen bomb required for secondary nuclear deterrence was not merely a conventional bomb with overwhelming yield, but a device potent enough to instigate nuclear fusion on the moon. Even if humanity were to amass all existing nuclear weapons, their yields would scarcely suffice to induce lunar fusion. Thus, there must be some underlying connection. Suddenly, Pei Su experienced an epiphany. Nuclear fusion. The very essence that could catalyze nuclear fusion was itself a product of nuclear fusion. Nuclear weapons were born from nuclear fusion technology. Therefore, to access this medium, Pei Su should not be examining this thesis, but rather delving into classified materials pertaining to nuclear fusion technology. With this realization, he promptly approached the computer and entered the term nuclear fusion. The computer responded swiftly, yielding a list of 15 books. It should be noted that every volume here contained classified information, as this was a military national library. These 15 books on nuclear fusion undoubtedly represented the latest developments in domestic research on the subject. However, the computer indicated that each book had been borrowed. Who was the borrower? Pei Su hastily began to investigate. The identification number, 0003, positioned directly before his own. Who could this person be? Pei Su closed the computer. His mind engulfed in contemplation. He yearned to locate books on nuclear fusion to connect with the medium. Yet all 15 volumes had been checked out by the individual labeled 0003. Who could this person possibly be? He feared that his inquiries would yield little. Initially, he intended to ask, but since his 0004 was a permanent license, it was highly likely that this 0003 also possessed a permanent license. Anyone endowed with a permanent license for this library would undoubtedly have their own information classified. He suspected that any investigation would be futile. Nuclear fusion, nuclear fusion. Pei Su murmured softly, returning to his previous seat. Just then, a female voice suddenly emerged behind him. Are you looking to borrow books on nuclear fusion? Pei Su was taken aback, abruptly turning around to discover a girl clad in black leather, positioned just a shelf away, surrounded by a pile of books, observing him intently. Who are you? Pei Su asked, gazing at the girl. With a leisurely demeanor, she flicked open a lighter and ignited a cigarette, the smoke wafting into the air. I know you. You must be Pei Su. I should have anticipated this. Your remarkable achievements undoubtedly qualify you for entry into this library. However, it is time you address my inquiry. Are you borrowing books on nuclear fusion? Upon hearing the woman's words, Pei Su nodded. Indeed. After reviewing Old Qin's paper, he felt compelled to delve into the vast domain of nuclear fusion. Chapter 91. Secondary Controlled Nuclear Fusion. The woman's expression remained unchanged. Exhaling a puff of smoke, she calmly introduced herself. Hello, my name is Zhang Wan, and I am the granddaughter of Commander Zhang. Pei Su paused for a moment. Who is Commander Zhang? His mind struggled to catch up, but soon he recalled. Oh, you mean Commander Zhang. In his mind, the aged figure of Zhang Yutong emerged. He also remembered that Zhang Wan was likely of a similar age to him. When Zhang Yutong had called, he had mentioned that Pei Su and Zhang Wan were peers. Observing Zhang Wan now, her demeanor did not suggest that of a student, yet she appeared no older than 24 or 25. Clad in a black leather jacket, she held a lady's cigarette, surrounded by a clutter of books on the table, next to an ashtray. Only then did Pei Su notice the prominent badge hanging from Zhang Wan's chest, which bore an identical blue permanent permit. Number 0003. Startled, Pei Su exclaimed, So? You are the one who took all the books on nuclear fusion? Indeed, Zhang Wan affirmed, her tone calm. I am currently overseeing a crucial project in the realm of controlled nuclear fusion, and I find myself confronting a significant challenge. Thus, I am endeavoring to extract answers from these books and materials. Pei Su inquired with curiosity. Have you read Old Qin's paper? Old Qin's paper? Yes, I have perused it. Zhang Wan replied softly. I admire his courage and decision-making at that time, yet I vehemently oppose the secondary nuclear deterrence program. To me, this project fundamentally contradicts both human and animal nature. Pei Su frowned slightly. Why is that? He settled across from Zhang Wan, gazing intently at her. Zhang Wan extinguished her cigarette in the ashtray and looked at Pei Su. What is animal nature? It is an ingrained ideology that prioritizes survival, with reproduction as a secondary goal. However, should the secondary nuclear deterrence program succeed, it could lead to mutual destruction across the entire solar system. Does that not violate animal nature? And what is human nature? She continued. Human nature is cold, real, and brutal. It is a vast concept yet also a minute one. If I must define it, it exists neither in pure light nor in absolute darkness. It is a delicate shade of gray. People often navigate the intricate gray areas of human nature for profit, power, wealth, self-esteem, glory, hope, passion, and the passage of time. Human nature is the greatest distinction between humans and animals. While human nature is multifaceted, animals display a consistent demeanor and appearance. Yet, with the emergence of a superhydrogen bomb, all of that is obliterated. Human nature? Animal nature? If a superhydrogen bomb were to be deployed on the moon, triggering nuclear fusion and disrupting the gravitational balance of the solar system, millions of years hence, the solar system would transform into a lifeless expanse. With humanity gone, does human nature still exist? At this point, Zhang Wan stated calmly. Thus, I am profoundly opposed to this project. A leader from the National Academy once inquired whether I would evaluate the feasibility of this plan. I knew full well that, given our nation's wealth and resources, should we commit to this project, it would certainly be realized, albeit over several decades. Nevertheless, I chose to tell the leader, namely Zheng Yuan, that I would not assess the feasibility of this plan, for I harbor a deep-seated aversion to it. Pei Su remained silent, merely observing the depths of Zhang Wan's eyes. In her gaze, there lay an enduring tranquility, seemingly devoid of deeper emotions. Let us not dwell on this.